Hey guys, today I'm here with the RBP self-power running boards fitting all 2018 and newer 4-door JL Wranglers. So if you're looking for an all-in-one step that's going to provide a lot of convenience as well as style, this option by RBP is going to be a great choice to take a look at. So once you open your door, your running board's gonna flip down and you're gonna have a 6-inch rib stepping surface, making sure that you have a ton of real estate underneath your foot while also giving you some extra traction on those wetter days. Now this is gonna be perfect for that JL owner who's recently added a lift and wants that extra convenience when getting in and out of their cab area or even accessing their roof if they have anything mounted up on top of their JL. Now this is also just perfect for that JL owner who doesn't even have a lift, but again wants that extra convenience. Not only are these going to provide a lot of convenience, but when you close up your door, these are gonna flip right into your rocker area, giving you some extra protection for that very vulnerable area when you're out on the trail. These will be made of a military-grade aluminum material, giving you a lot of extra protection to that rocker area. So if you are out on the trail, you do take a hit, these will be able to take the blow and save your body from any of that extra damage that you might get. Not to mention, these are gonna have a fine texture black powder coat finish on them, protecting that aluminum underneath while also giving you some more off-road style. Now, what I really like about these is the fact that they kind of mimic the factory Ruby rail. They're very compact, they're up and out of the way, and they tuck tight to the rocker, and they're also going to have some very durable motors and mounting points. Not only is the running board itself going to be very durable and tucked tight up to the rocker, but the motors themselves are going to be very durable as well with an IP68 dust and waterproof rating. So you don't have to worry about these while you're out on the trail. You can run these through mud and you can submerge them to up to 3 feet of water and they will still function as normal. Now with all of that being said, these are going to be a more pricey option in comparison to the average side step at roughly $1,300. Now as far as power steps go, that's going to be a pretty good price considering that they can range all the way from $1,300 or $1,200 up to about $2,000. Now I personally like this option. You're getting real estate or a large step from tire to tire. Some other options will have a couple of different designs as far as the step coming down. I personally like how this is a very easy fold down option and it's going to have a one-up over the more expensive options with the integrated LED lighting. So for $1,300, I personally think that that hits the nail on the head. Not to mention, you're also getting a full plug-and-play wiring harness. It's going to be a bit of a process to get everything installed, so I am going to give it a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, but considering that it's plug-and-play, it is going to be a pretty simple 2 out of 3. So you're going to need some very basic hand tools and about 2 hours worth of your time. So speaking of that install, let's jump into that now. Tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, trim removal tools, a tape measure, 1/4-inch drive ratchet, the ratchet and T40 Torx from the JL toolkit, a small flathead screwdriver, an 18mm, 13mm, 12mm, and 10mm socket, a 3-inch extension, a 5mm Allen key, a 7/16" drill bit, a pair of safety glasses, and a drill. So our first step is to mount up our motor assemblies, which are also going to be our mounting brackets. Now we're going to start in the passenger side rear, and you are going to have a spacer, so I would recommend to have your hardware staged as well as those 2 components, and then we can go ahead and mount that up. So our first step is to put our spacer behind here. This is going to sit behind our pinch seam. Then we can put our motor up into place right behind that spacer. Grab our provided hardware and thread that into the motor. Now you are going to have a little label on each of the mounting assemblies. So once you have the 2 pinch seam bolts threaded in, you can snug them up by hand. We're not going to tighten anything down just yet. We want to make sure that everything's attached first. So after those are snugged up, we can take our shorter bolt and thread this into the rocker. There should be a mounting location on the underside of your rocker area, and we can loosely thread this in as well. So for the front, we can repeat that same process besides the spacer. So this one is not going to have a spacer. So next we have to attach our protective bracket for our front motor. You're gonna have one for the front right and one for the front left. They are gonna be labeled. You're also gonna have a threaded nut plate that we're going to insert in our frame and a larger bolt with a lock washer and a flat washer that we're gonna secure this down with. So first we're going to put this in the underside of our frame, line this up and secure it down. So there is going to be a larger hole behind our cross member here. We're gonna take our threaded nut plate and insert that in there. You should be able to stick your hand in the side of the frame here and line it up. Then we can take our bracket. There is gonna be a little pin for alignment, and this is gonna go over the bottom of the motor here. Gonna line it up with that larger hole. Take our bolt and thread that into place. I'm just going to make sure that that is snugged up, sitting in the right location. And now we can attach our step. So right now we're looking at the step upside down. There are gonna be little T-fittings inside of a rail, and that's going to mount up to our actual mounting bracket or our motor with our cap screws. So what I'm gonna do is just line those up the best that I can, and then what we're gonna do is put it on and we'll adjust it and tighten it down in just a second. So essentially what we wanna do is kind of line it up on the bracket. I grabbed a 5mm Allen key just to help me thread this in. Now we're not going to tighten this front one up just yet. We want to make sure that the back one is in before we tighten it down, but we are going to snug them up so it kind of stays in place with us. Right, now we can head to the back. So once you have both of them lined up and snugged down, you can adjust the step to where you want it. And then we can tighten this down onto our mounting bracket with that 5mm Allen key. Now we can tighten up our mounting brackets. Starting with the front, what we can do first is tighten up our pinch seam bolts. I'm using a 13mm deep socket. I'm also using a 3-inch extension just to give myself a little bit of room away from the side step here. Then we can head underneath and tighten up our rocker bolt. That's really where the 3-inch extension is gonna come in handy because it is tucked up in between this motor here. What we can do now is tighten up our motor protective bracket. So I am going to use an 18mm socket and my impact wrench and tighten that up into the welded nut. Then we can do the same thing in the rear. So after we've finished up on the passenger side, mounting up our motors or our mounting brackets as well as our running board, you can repeat that process on the other side. Now we're back on the passenger side and we are going to mount up our control box. This is gonna go in the middle mounting location for the pinch seam, and we are gonna have the welded nuts on the back of the control box as well as similar hardware to our mounting brackets with a flat washer and a split washer. So this is just gonna tuck up behind this pinch seam here. And we're gonna thread this into place. Then we can grab our 13mm socket and tighten those up. Now we can grab our wiring harness and start to route our wires. Before we hop into any of the wiring, I wanted to lay the wiring harness out and tell you guys what's going on with this. Now this main plug, this is going to plug into our power control unit and control the whole wiring harness. Then you're gonna have a passenger side and a driver's side. Driver's side is going to be a bit longer. We're gonna pass that over onto the driver's side in just a minute, but these are going to plug into the motors, and then you're gonna have a smaller connector that's gonna plug into your LED lights. Now moving up to the smaller wires, these are both going to be your trigger wires as well as your cutoff wires. So this black wire has a connector on the end that's going to go to a switch. So if you take your doors off, you'll be able to control the power steps with a switch instead of having the magnet on the door. Last but not least, up at the front, you're going to have two leads to go to your two battery terminals. You're going to have your positive and your negative with a 20 amp fuse in each of those. So what we're going to start with is the power control, then we'll wire up the passenger side, move to the driver's side, and then work on our smaller wiring. And then last but not least, we can hook it up to the battery. So again, we're going to start with our power control unit. We're going to have 4 plugs. We're going to have a positive and negative, and those are going to be our smaller wires. Then we're going to have a larger, bigger pin connector. This is going to be a 5-pin connector and a 4-pin connector. Go ahead and start to plug those in. I do also like the fact that they have seals on them to make sure that everything is waterproofed. The motors will be waterproofed as well. We can submerge them actually up to 3 feet of water. So you don't have to be concerned about any of the waterproofing. So black goes to black. There will be a little alignment pin within each of these smaller power wires. And then we can move to our rear motor first. So first we're going to plug in our main connector. This is going to be for our motor. Then we can plug in our LED light. Now we're going to clean up our frame rail and mount this up to our frame in just a second, but I am going to plug it in here. Now we can move up to the front motor. So it's going to be the same thing up front. So to clean up some of this wiring and to connect it on our driver's side, we are going to route our driver's side wiring harness over to the driver's side. Now you want to make sure that this is going to be tucked away so it's not near the exhaust system where it could potentially get burnt, or you don't want it near any moving parts. So just be mindful where you route this, and you can zip tie this up after you're finished. I'm just going to tuck it through here. Kind of route this the best that I can. After we have the driver and the passenger side wiring harness all plugged in, what we can do is mount up our LED lights before we go any further with the wiring harness. Now we are going to mount these up to the frame directly under the center of each of the doors. We are going to have 4 LED lights total. You want to make sure that the frame is clean. I cleaned this as well as wiped it down with alcohol just to make sure that the bonding process is going to not be interrupted by any dirt or anything here. So what we can do is peel this backing, and what I'm going to do is actually mount this upside down with the wire facing up so it's easier to tuck away. So on the back LED, it is going to sit kind of behind this motor here, but the LED will be strong enough to illuminate underneath the passenger rear door. Then we can move up to the front and mount up our front LED. The front LED is not going to be near the motor. Again, we want to make sure that we mount this up underneath the center of each of the doors. But I am going to mount this with the wire facing up again. You can just give that a good press, and then we can move on to the rest of our wiring. What we can do now is head inside our cab area. We will have to pull a couple of trim pieces and remove some of the carpet so we can pull some of our wiring through. And we're also gonna have to route some of our wiring for our door magnets that will trigger our side step. So I'm gonna start with the door. It may be a little bit easier to disconnect the door and swing it all the way open. So what I'm gonna do is grab the T40 Torx and the ratchet from the JL toolkit, disconnect our door, disconnect the door's wiring harness so we can access our trim as well as our carpet a little bit easier. So what I'm gonna do is remove this bolt first. This is what our door stopper is connected to. I'm using, again, that T40 Torx and the ratchet from the JL toolkit. All right, once that's removed, we can pull this kicker panel back and our wiring harness. So I'm gonna use a small flathead and just kick up this part of our wiring harness so we can disconnect it. Then we can remove our limiting strap. Then we can fully swing our door open. What we can do now is pull the floor mat. Get that out of the way. We can also remove this grommet and get the kicker panel out of the way too. So what I want to do is remove this whole kicker panel here. So I'm going to take a 10mm socket, and there is a bolt or a nut right at the side of the body here that we're going to go ahead and remove so we can fully remove this trim piece. Once that's off there, what we can do is grab a trim removal tool. I am just going to push this forward, and it's only held in by a couple of clips, so it should move pretty easily. So once you have part of the panel removed, you can pull on the back here. Just keep pulling forward. And then this will be around our limiting strap hook. So we just got to wiggle that off. We can put that to the side. And then we'll have access to underneath our carpet and that drain plug where we're going to pull our wires through. So what we're gonna do is remove this drain plug. I'm just gonna use a trim removal tool to help me out a little bit, just to kind of lift it up so I can get a grip on it. So now that we're over at the table, we can drill a 7/16 inch hole in our drain plug. Now what I have here is just a block of wood so that we can drill into and keep the rubber drain plug stable while we're drilling. And I have a 7/16 inch drill bit and our drill, as well as a pair of safety glasses. Then we can go ahead, keep this stable with one hand, and drill a hole in one of the sides of the drain plug. So before we go ahead and put our drain plug back in, what we're gonna do is route our wires up through this hole first. So I'm gonna pull one of our trigger wires through. This white one is going to be for the driver's side. Have the rest of our harness here. This black harness, again, is going to be for our switch, and we are going to route that over to the driver's side in just a second. Our last wire is this brown wire, which we will attach to one of our trigger wires. So now that our wires are through the grommet, what we're gonna do is actually pull this carpet back. So first I'm gonna grab the wires and just feed them underneath the carpet. I'm gonna have them hang out the side still, but I wanna fully pull back the carpet so we can route our driver's side wires behind the carpet underneath our center console. So So there's a connector up at the front, you just gotta give it a good tug. It's similar to these connectors for our floor mat. It's just a little pop. There's one on the side as well. Just gonna pull on that. And then we can kind of pull this forward. So once this is kind of up and out of the way, we can take our white wire and our black wire and kind of pass this over to the driver's side because we're gonna route this underneath our center console. On the side of our center console here, there's a circled trim piece. I'm gonna use a trim removal tool and just pop that out. It's gonna be held in by a couple of clips. Then we can take a 10mm socket and remove that bolt that's holding in the side of our trim. There's also going to be one on the other side that we're gonna remove in just a second, but this is gonna pull our center console up so we can route the wires underneath. This will make sure that all of our wires underneath are hidden and tucked away, and it is all clean. Take that out, put this to the side, and repeat that on the other side. So the carpet is still intact over here because we didn't have to pass any wires up through. We just had to connect it to our side step. But we will be pulling up this carpet to route the wire for our trigger. So all we have to do is pull up just a little bit. We just need a pass through so we can get our wires over here, as well as pull the carpet back so we can get it underneath over to this side trim piece. So what I'm gonna do is just pass these through to the other side. Then once those are through, we can pull the carpet on this side and pull this trim piece as well, so we can tuck our white wire into our trim piece. And then this black wire can sit here because this is going to be our switch wire. So what I'm gonna do is tuck these underneath. Start to pull the carpet. And for the time being, I'm actually gonna pull them through the carpet so we can hook up the passenger side. And then head back over to the driver's side. Now we can pop our center console back down, reattach our bolts. So I'm going to take that 10mm socket, just tighten up those center console bolts again. Make sure that my carpet is tucked at least on the driver's side. We can access underneath the carpet in just a second when we pull the trim pieces. Once that's in place, we can pop our cover back on. For the time being, move over to the passenger side and get everything secured. So now that we have our wires through the grommet and over to the driver's side, what we can do is start to route this brown wire for the passenger side through our trim piece back so we can attach our magnets to each of our door jambs. So I'm going to start by kind of putting this carpet back. Popping this back into where it needs to be and tucking it away, because for the moment we are about finished with that. So what we're gonna start to do is push this trim piece out just like we did with the bottom in the front. It's all held in by a couple of clips. Just wanna make a good pass through so that we can attach our magnet on our back door as well. And this is gonna sit right about here. And then we can open up our back door and pull that panel. So we're gonna do the same thing for this back trim. You may be able to hook your hand underneath it too, kind of to give it a good push. It's all gonna be held in by those clips. Might also help to pull this panel right there. And again, you just want a good pass through so we can pass the wire through this bottom side and run it underneath our trim to make sure it is clean. What we can do now is start to run and attach our magnets. Now these are gonna go on the striker side, so you wanna make sure that that is where they fall when we run it underneath our trim. These are also going to be connected, so the part with the connector, that's gonna be at the front door, and the part that has the little eyelet connector, that is going to be attached to a ground on the back door. So what we're gonna do is pass this front one through our trim panel so we can start to wire this up. So this is going to route underneath our trim. Then we're gonna attach this wire to this ground stud on the body of the Jeep. So what I'm gonna do is grab a 10mm socket. This is a ground wire. So we're just gonna loosen this up. Take our eyelet, slide that underneath, make sure that's good, got a good connection, and tighten that back up. Right. What we can do next is pull this carpet. This is just gonna be tucked into the side of the Jeep. Move this all the way up here, retuck that. And this is where our magnet is going to sit. So for the time being, let's just tuck everything in, put our carpet back into place. And then we can measure where our magnet or our actual connector needs to sit. What we can do now is attach our magnet to the door. We want to measure about 1.5 inches down from that striker. So that's roughly right there. You have a piece of 3M tape. You want to make sure that you hit this with some alcohol, make sure it is sticking correctly, and then we can attach this wiring harness. Give it a good press. Tuck that excess down there, and now we can move up and do the same thing for the front. So for the front magnet, instead of the eyelet, we have the connector here. So we're gonna plug that in. That's gonna go to our brown wire. That's what we're gonna hide behind this trim here. Then we can do the same thing that we did with the back. Route this up here. Recommend to tuck it first, so we can pop this trim back into place when we're finished. There is a little corner up here that you can kind of maneuver this to. And that's where it's gonna sit. So again, we're gonna go about 1.5 inches down from the striker, which for this is right at the bottom here. So at this point, what we can do is button up our trim in the back all the way up to the front, put in our kicker panel, and then we can go ahead and repeat that whole process on the other side. So what we can start to do is put this back into place. You want to make sure that the wire is out of the way from any of these clips here, but just kind of got to give it a good press. So what we can do next is reattach our kicker panel. So this part is gonna go around that hook here. Just maneuver this back into place. Make sure that everything's lining up. Make sure that your wiring harness is over the kicker panel. All right, then we can give it a good press. Give it a good press up at the top too. Then as you can see up here, we need to reconnect that nut. We can tighten that up with our 10mm socket. Then we can put our floor mat back in to make sure that our carpet's staying in place. What we can do now is attach the magnet to the door side. This is going to be the small magnet here. What I'm going to do is measure again 1.5 inches down. It's about right here, and we're going to stick our magnet right below there. Now we can do the same thing for the back. Again, we're going to measure about 1.5 inches down. Stick that on there. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. So after we have everything buttoned up and plugged in on the driver and the passenger side, what we can do now is attach our switch. Now when we were running that white wire to be attached to our door triggers underneath this trim panel, I wired this black wire through the kicker panel here. Now this is going to be right on that opening here, so you can access this and disconnect it if you need to, but I'm going to actually take the switch wiring harness and pass it down behind our dash here. It's going to drop out at the bottom, but I want to make sure that this is in an accessible place. So I'm going to put that right next to our steering wheel. Feel the 3M tape on the back. Go right there. And that's going to give that a pretty clean look now that it's tucked through there. Then we can come down to the bottom. We can plug these two in. And hear a little click. And then we can start to kind of feed this back into here and clean up that wiring. Right, once that wiring is tucked up and clean, we can reattach trim piece. Right? And we can attach our leads to the battery. What we can do now is pop our hood. After our hood's popped, we can run our leads up on the right side of our fuse box right here. So before we go ahead and route these up to our engine bay, you want to make sure that you pop this little seal here and pop our fuses out. Now you are provided with 2 more 20 amp fuses just in case you do pop them. But we're just going to pop those out, put those to the side for just a minute. Close these to make sure that no dirt gets in there. And then we can head underneath and start to push the wires up. I'm just going to go right behind this fender well here, right on the other side of that shock tower. Let's snake the wires up and we can position them once they're in the engine bay. So if you have small hands like me, you may be able to fish these up just by hand. However, you may want to actually put a hanger or a fishing tool on the side of the fuse box here or the battery tray, and then you'll be able to fish these up through the fender well. Then we can go ahead and attach them to our battery. We can go ahead and attach our leads. I'm going to use a 12mm socket to disconnect our positive terminal. We're going to push this plastic back here You also want to keep an eye on your negative lead, make sure it's not touching any metal. Tighten that back up with that 12mm socket. Cover that back up. And grab a 10mm socket and do the same thing with the negative terminal. Once those are both attached, we can pop our fuses back in. After we close up our hood and make sure that everything is working properly, then we can zip tie all of our wires up and out of the way and clean up all of our wiring harnesses. So after you have everything zip tied and tucked out of the way, then you're all set to go. So that's gonna wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products just like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.